session is leveling up with dynamic forms and actions. So we'll be giving a hands-on demo with dynamic forms and interactions. And there will be time for Q&A. So please do feel free to pop in any questions you have either in the chat or in the Q&A column there. And I'm just having a look in the chat now. And it looks like I've got Rohan back in as a potentially as a moderator. So thank you again, Rohan. And yes, so there's a raffle. So click on the URL and submit your entry to take part in the raffle. And we'll be announcing the winner at the end of this session. Okay, so for those who weren't part of my previous session, I'll quickly overview who I am. So my name is Mark Jones. I am a non-profit Salesforce admin with 5 years experience, just about to move into consultancy next month. I'm the co-leader of the Newcastle upon Tyne user group in the UK. I'm a certified admin and 3-time Trailhead Ranger. I'm a multi-time conference speaker. This is my second conference this year, in fact. And I regularly contribute to various things within the Salesforce.org community, such as the Ask Me Anythings in the EMEA region, the Open Source Common Sprint, which I've done in both EMEA and in EMA. I'm a mentor with the Trailblazer Mentorship Program, and I write a blog which is I call the Ragamuffin Admin. So that's a little bit about myself. If you'd like to connect with me on Twitter or LinkedIn, you'll be able to find my information in my profile. So please do have it pop over there if you want to connect. And I'm more than happy to chat off air about anything Salesforce related at any time. So what we'll be covering in this session. We'll be covering what is dynamic forms and actions. I'll be giving you a bit of a hands-on demo with dynamic forms and actions. And I'll also give you some tips and tricks from what I've learned. If you're on the call and you have used dynamic forms and actions, I'd love to hear your tips and tricks as well, because I've got five so far. And these ones I recommend to other admins when I talk to them about using dynamic forms and actions. And then we'll have some time for questions and answers before we get into the raffle. So that's kind of a high-level overview of what we'll be doing in this session. So we've put in the poll. I'm going to check if any more results have come in the poll. Still on 12. But yeah, over the course of the session, do feel free, if you're here, because I see we've got 18 people in the session now, and we've got 12 results. Do feel free to go to the poll and let us know what experience you have with dynamic forms and actions. At the moment, the vast majority, 92.3%, with 12 votes, have said no. They have no experience, with 1 vote saying yes. Okay. And this does not seem to want to work. There you go. So, what exactly are dynamic forms and actions? It's a very good question, and judging from this poll, the numbers are going up. We have 13 votes now for saying no experience whatsoever with them. So, what are dynamic forms and actions? Dynamic forms are a customizable user experience where the admin would add fields to the Lightning record page in a field section and would be able to customize when those fields are visible based on using the component visibility criteria, which you hopefully might be familiar with from the Lightning App Builder, but we'll be demoing that in a bit. But dynamic forms is specifically around fields and field sections. And essentially, it's creating essentially a page layout that is customizable within the Lightning App Builder. So you could essentially have, in an ideal world, when it comes further into standard objects, in an ideal world, you'll be able to just have maybe one record type and just display field sections or display fields in those sections depending on your criteria. Dynamic actions are slightly different. If you've been around a while as an admin or even as a dev, you will hopefully know of the term quick actions. It's something that you learn in a bit more about in the App Builder exam. I believe it does get covered in the admin exam, but it wasn't covered at all in any of the 2 times I tried to sit it. Well, basically, a quick action is things like edit, delete, clone. Those are quick actions, and dynamic actions are quick actions with the function using the component visibility rules to customize when those quick actions are displayed. And I mentioned there that both of these things use component visibility rules to control its visibility. So Dyno Forms, you're controlling field and field sections. Dynamic actions, you're controlling quick actions with these component visibility rules. Moving on to the big thing that everybody wants to know around dynamic forms. It's something you see all the time coming up in the community, which is what is its availability. At the moment, it is just available on custom objects for dynamic forms. It's not available on mobile either. At the moment, I don't think that's changing in the next release that's coming out. I haven't seen any updates around that. I do try and keep on top of it, actually. Dynamic actions, however, are generally available across both custom and standard objects, and it is available on mobile, unless I am mistaken. I'm pretty certain it is. So it's available across the board. But Dynamic Forms is only available on custom objects on desktop. The team have been working towards trying to get standard Dynamic Forms available for standard objects, but there is some complications into how complex it is to get that to work. So while it is a priority for them, what I will see if we can dig down, maybe put the link in the chat once I've finished sharing my screen, is there's a group on the Trailblazer community for Dyno Forms and actions. So what I would recommend is if you're somebody who's interested in this area, to sign up to that group, to join that group, and to keep an eye on the roadmap, because that will be updated. There was also ideas on the idea exchange, which are all listed in that group for all of the standard objects. So if you are particularly wanting to see Dyno Forms come to accounts or contacts, you can go to that idea and vote it up. But what I'll do is once I've stopped sharing my screen, overall, I will share the link to that group in the chat here, so you can see that. Okay, so let's talk a little bit about the logic behind Dyno Forms and actions, because not every field is available to use as a controlling field within component visibility rules. So the fields types that are available to use are string type fields. So there will be text, number, percentage, and those are the ones those are what you can use in terms of controlling component visibility as string type fields. IDs are also able to be used. So if you want to say, display a field if the record ID is whatever the record ID is, you could do that. Although that's not something I would personally recommend, but you can do that because an ID is a variation of a string type field. Checkboxes are able to be used as well as controlling fields in component visibility. So you could set it to be if this checkbox is true or false. Geolocations can be used because again, it's a variation of a string type field. That's how the value is returned. Pick lists are able to be used. Multi-sec pick lists sort of can be used, but they're very, very buggy, I've found. So pick lists, the traditional pick list, you can certainly use completely as that. And then you've got two extra field types that you can use, which are roll-up summary fields and formula fields. With these two types of fields, obviously roll-up summary will return as a number, but for the formula field, the type of value it has to return as must be the same as the types I've listed before. So the following field must return as either a string type field, so number, text, percentage, an ID, a checkbox, which is a Boolean, a geolocation, or must return in some capacity tied to a pick list. But those are the fields that you can use to control component visibility in dynamic forms and actions. I'm going to move forward now as well. And we're going to move into more of the hands-on demo now. And you can see, I'll show you how you basically build up a dynamic form page using a page I've already got at the ready. And you'll be able to see how that will work overall. And I'll show you that, and I'll try and keep an eye on the Q&A on this, because I don't want to go, let's see, too fast with this. So let me come out of this and let me go into my Salesforce. So hopefully you'll be able to see this. And I'll go to my object I've got the ready, which is client cases. This is not the case object itself, obviously. This is a custom object I've created, which was based on what I do from the nonprofit side. So you will see here I've got a client case already created. And you'll see here you've got the standard view with all the details on here. And this is based on a page layout. So how you create a dynamic form is you create it via the Lightning app and you create a Lightning record page. So how you do that is you go to your setup tab here when it loads, and you then click on edit page. And that's a quick way to do it, or you could do it via going to this setup, object manager, navigate to your object, as I've done here. Just simply go to record, click the setup, and then click edit page. Again, while it's loading, just a quick reminder to go to the raffle link and put your details in the raffle, and we'll share that a little bit towards the end. I'm just waiting for this to load, so you can see here. Okay, so you can see here that the page is loading, and I'm hoping, and I know I can see that the screen's a little bit small here. Let me just try and I can't actually maximize this. I can't maximize my screen. So if you need to, click on the full screen and you'll be able to see that a little bit bigger, because it is a bit of a small view on here. I will see if I can make this a little bit bigger. So that is a little, I'm going to actually shrink it, sorry, because I can't really see anything on there myself. So if you need to, go full screen it. Okay, so in the Lightning App Builder here, you have your two core sections. You have components and you have fields. When you want to build a dynamic form, you would be using the fields section. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to rebuild this page from scratch here. So I'm going to delete this section here. And you'll see from some of my tips when I come back to it why I suggest some of these things. So I'm going to add a tab here. That'll be tab section here. And you can feel free as the admin to build it however you think is right for you to do. So I'm going to do, because there's no records. And what, as I say, if you go to your field section here, you then want to add a section, and then you add your fields. So let me just go to here, so field section. and I'm going to add this here, and I'm going to have a look at my fields and see what I want to add. So I'm going to have this be, let's just call this case information. Again, you can customize these however you like. You can also take away the text and you fill that in. You can have, I didn't actually go over here, actually screen on here. Here you can have either set it to be one column or two columns. I do mention it in the tips as well, but just bear in mind that the way that the tab navigation works, when you click on your tab button and you move across your fields, it's left to right, top to bottom. So let me just put these in here. So I'm going to put my record type field here. I'm going to put my client case ID here. I'm also going to put down my project. Actually, what I'm going to remove the client case ID because it's on the top here. I'm going to put down my client, my project, and I'm going to put down my case status. I'm then going to add another section. And again, feel free to build these out how much you like. But I'm going to have this be case period. And I'm going to have this to be open date. I'm going to have this to be closure date. I'm going to have this marked as read only. And slight apologies, my screen is going a bit slow. And I'm going to add a couple more sections here. And this is going to be case period notes. I'm going to add in my creation notes and my closure notes. Underneath here, I'm going to have this as a one column as well. And this will be my case project confirmation. And this is a field I've put in there, which I use as a safeguard when I create these. So this is tied to a validation rule, which basically says this name has got to exist. The record of this project name has got to match to this text field, and it's more of a validation step. And then I'm going to put in over here just so you can see how it works. I'm going to put this in a not great position. I'm going to add my system information. So I'm going to add created by, and that's modified by. Now you will see here, I'm going to put on here, and I'm going to leave that field for now. So I'm going to save this. I'm going to activate this view, and I'll show you how this looks without doing anything dynamic with it. So I'm going to assign this to my app. And I'm going to save, and then I'm going to come out of this. And I may have to refresh this page, but what you'll see here is you'll see all of the fields that I've added here, and you'll see the sections I've created. along the way. So when I go back, here you'll see once this page is loaded, and apologies, it is going slightly slow. But when this loads, you'll see here, I've got all of the sections here that I created, and you can see system information is there. You can see that the case was closed. What I'm going to very quickly do, because I'm the admin and I can, I'm going to change this to open. I'm going to take off the closure date. And I'm going to take out these notes here. Okay. So this is something I'd already created. So you can see here, I've got these sections put together here. And you can see that my system information is not quite in the right place. Let me show you very quickly, if as the page loads, how the page will look once I've done a bit more work on it to make it a bit more dynamic and a bit more easy to use. Shall we put this way, a bit more customizable. And again, I'm doing this on a custom object. So I'm going to do some work on here, and you'll be able to see how this is working. So again, feel free to keep your screen on full screen if this looks a bit small. I'm going to keep it on this view for now so I can see what I'm doing fully. So and again, some things you won't see because I'm here working as the admin. So I'm going to change this field to be read-only. This will make it read-only for the end user. The admin can still edit it. I'm going to shift this field section for system information over to here. I'm going to add another field section here. For case closure. And I'm going to make that one column, and I'm going to shift my case closure notes here. And I'm going to add my other reason for case closure here. And now that I've kind of customized this page a little bit more, I'm going to actually now begin to make it dynamic, as you can see. So I'm going to work on this section because there's only got the one field. And I'm going to make this so that this only appears if the record has not been created. So this section here with the case project confirmation, I only want this to appear at this point in time when I'm first creating the record, because it's tied to a validation rule, which basically says it must be filled in and it must match the name of a custom object record I've got called project. So I'm going to say created equals false. So I'm just doing that by adding the filter and using the field to be created and equals false. So I'm doing that. And closure date, I'm also going to have this be dynamic and only displayed if the case status. So case status equals closed. And the reason for that is just basically saying, like, if this client case is closed, then I'm only going to display that information there. Same with this entire section. I'm going to say this is only going to be available. So this whole section is only going to be available when the status of the case equals closed. Okay. And then I'm going to add a filter to the other reason, the closure. And I'm going to have that as being when the case closure reason or the reason for closure is other. And I had two examples there, disengaged and successfully moved on from program. I'm going to put those ones down, and I'm now going to save this again, and then I'm going to go back to my page, and then I'll do a little bit more customization with this, so you can see. So, and then let me go back. If there's any questions coming in and questions that you have, feel free to share them in the chat as well whilst I'm doing this, because I'm more than happy to answer any questions. I am keeping an eye on the chat here as well. So what you should now see, unless I need to refresh it, is you'll see here that the closure section is not there because the case is not closed, and you'll see there that my notes have disappeared, are not there. Okay, but you can see how some fields have disappeared. So the close date is not visible because it isn't, the case isn't closed, and again, that section is not there anymore. However, if I go to click on edit, you'll see here that this is all looking fine as well. I'm going to do one more final edit, and I'm going to show you how it works with dynamic actions, and I'm also going to do a final cleanup of this and show you some of my preferences before I go into my tips. So I'm going to edit this page one final time so you can see this. And this is not a complete start to finish. I would do probably a bit more different bits and pieces, but I'm kind of giving you this idea for this is more of an introduction to kind of show you how you can use dynamic forms and begin to work through some stuff. So the last little bit I'm going to do here once this page is loaded, I'm going to do one final cleanup of the page, and then I'm going to show you dynamic actions. So I'm going to go down here. I'm going to add a tab section here. This is more of a preference thing for me, but I'm going to use this. I'm going to still set that to default, and I am going to have this as system information. And I often use custom labels on my tabs just to keep things a little bit consistent. He doesn't seem to want to work here, so we just do done. I'm going to add a new tab. I'm going to try and see if I can get this to work. Not quite sure what he's doing there. So let me shift that. Into here. I'm going to drag him up. And hopefully now, thank you, I can do this, and I'm going to just do this as case closure. I'm going to drag that up into my closure section. And you can see here, I've got my system information in the tab. I'm going to change this to make sure this is one column, because at the moment it's two, so it's a bit cleaner. And in my case closure, that is one column. Okay, so I've done that. So that's my final cleanup of the page. I'm going to do my custom actions. So how you get to do that is you'll see this button here when you click on your highlights panel. which is this section at the very top of the page. And you'll have a button that gives you a card that gives you some text around upgrade to dynamic actions, which is basically you now configure dynamic actions. And I'm going to click on upgrade now. Now, what you can do is you can migrate all of the existing actions across from your standard page layout into your highlights bar. You can do that if you like. That is a fine way of doing it. However, for the purpose of this demo, and also because I prefer doing it this way, I'm going to start from scratch. So I'm going to do that. And what this does is it takes away all of the actions, and you then add an action here, and you can customize how many actions are visible. And you can see here, and this is also based on the screen's resolution size. So I'm going to change this to 4, just for this example, and see if it works. I'm going to add my actions. So I'm going to add edit. Okay. I'm going to add a delete. And I will go, and for the purpose of this demo, I'm going to add a custom visibility rule on here and show you one extra one you can do. Because this is something that I in my organization that I currently work for, we have this thing where only the admin can delete. So I'm going to show you quickly how I do that as well. So I'm going to go to advanced in the filter, and I'm going to do profile, so user. A while since I've done this, I'm going to go to user, profile. I spell profile correctly. There you go. Name. And I'm going to put that down there. So I've got user profile name, and I'm going to equals system administrator. And this will then show that that delete button is only visible to the system admin. And I'm going to add 2 more actions in here. I'm going to do clone, just for the sake of having 4 buttons. And I'm going to do 1 more on here, which is a custom action I created earlier on, which is called close case. And I'm going to add some component visibility on this. I'm going to add this and set this so that the case status is open. And for the purpose of this demo, because we've got 25 minutes left and I want to go through my tips, I'm not going to change this after, but I'll give you a tip as to what I would do with custom actions that you add on there, whether it's edit, delete, whatever, which is a good principle to bear in mind for admins using dynamic forms. So I'm going to save this, and I'm going to go back, and you'll see that this will be a bit cleaner, ever so slightly. And there's different things you could do to tweak it. And so this is not a perfect page setup, but this is kind of a quick whistle-stop tour of dynamic forms and actions. So you can see it in action, to pardon the pun. So just wait for this to load, and you will see here, once it's loaded, that my custom actions are created. Here, so you can see I've got all 4 buttons are displayed. I've got close, edit, clone, and delete. My system information is in its own tab. In the case closure, I don't have anything displayed there because the case is open, and this is as it was before. And also the case project confirmation is disappeared because the case is created in the client case. So I'm going to click on this close case button and hope it still works, because this was actually a flow I built earlier on a while back. So I'm going to say the closure date for this is today. I'm going to set my reason to closure as saying disengage with service as an example. And I'm going to say client did not engage with the service. Now, normally if I was recommending this to staff at my place, I would ask them to fill in with a bit more information. But I'm just doing this for the point of the demo. So add in my closure date, the reason for closure, and the case closure notes. And you'll see once I click on next, because this is a flow, which I'm really looking forward to custom labels on flow, screen flows. Once I click on next, this will update. And you'll see there that all of a sudden, my case closure notes have appeared. And you'll see that my date has appeared, as has my status. But what you'll also see is right next to the edit button here, where I had the close case button, that the close case button has disappeared. So let me quickly just run through that again. So you can see that. So I'm going to edit this, and you can see that this is actually working. So I'm going to cut that text. I'm going to delete the closure date. And I'm going to change this back to open. So you can see how when I reset these values, that'll go back to have that case open. So yeah, that is fine. So I'm going to click on continue. And there you go, because that's a little new message that's popped up. And you see everything's went back to what it was before. And and you can see the close case button is back. So I'm going to again do this again. Disengaged today. And put my notes back in there. And then click on next. And you can see there, once again, those fields have appeared, and the close case button has disappeared. So that is a quick whistle-stop tour of dynamic forms and actions. So let me go back to my presentation, and I will then share the screen. So I'm not sure why this is gone. Let me just, there you go. That's what I wanted it to do. And let me go back to my presentation. So here's some tips and tricks for basically getting the most out of dynamic forms and actions. What I will say is, if anybody on this session does really want a bit more of an in-depth session to what we're able to do in this time today, please do connect with me on LinkedIn. I'm more than happy to get onto like a video call or something like that if we can make time work to go through that. And I can also happily try and answer whatever questions we can before we finish off. But here's some tips and tricks to use with dynamic forms and actions. First one is plan out your Lightning record pages. So I mentioned that dynamic forms is built in the Lightning app builder using Lightning record pages. And a good principle to bear in mind is basically plan where things should go. Also to plan what users should see and when they should see them. So plan out your component visibility rules, plan out your page layout. And like I say, you can't, like I mentioned on the slide here, unlike with page layouts, you can't actually customize the tab direction. So again, when you click on your tab button and you move across, you can't customize that direction. And it's left to right, top to bottom. So say like admins should build their dynamic forms with this principle in mind. So that basically you build, sorry, top to bottom, left to right. I had it wrong way around. So it's top to bottom, left to right. And you should bear that in mind. So if you're putting stuff around, you want to kind of put in the column so that your users are going down and then left. And it does this in the sections. So rather than going through each one. So if you've got a section with 6 fields, it'll go field 1, field 2, field 3, field 4, field 5, field 6. And then it'll go to the next section and do the same. And again, this only works on desktop as well. But map out your page layout, your Lightning record pages, to get the most out of dynamic forms and actions. One of the little bits I have on it is placing your system information fields wisely. So one thing that I didn't quite do in this demo is having, say, on my right side of my page, on the section on the left, sorry, on the left hand side, I didn't have system information on the bottom there, and then have other fields in the right section. What will happen if you do that is that you will have your system information fields appear somewhere towards the middle of your page, depending on how many fields you've got in your right hand section. So what I often recommend is basically deciding whether you want your system information fields to be in your compact layout or at the beginning or end of your layout of your page layout that you're building Lightning record pages. And as a pro tip, you saw there, I put system information in its own tab. If you put it in its own tab, and then you have, say, one tab, which is like, say, all of your fields in your right section, apart from system information, for example, you can always guarantee that your system information will be displayed at the very end. I always do it at the very end rather than at the very beginning, but use whatever approach you think works best for you and your org. Tip 3 I'm going to mention here is to use formulas to enhance the user experience. And what we mean by that is, for example, you saw in that demo I did, I had a field which was created. And all that is a formula field, which is a Boolean, which basically says if the created date is equal or less than now, because this is date time, tick the box to say it's true. And you can use formulas to do that as well. When I went through the fields that were available in Dyno Forms and Actions, you'd have possibly noted there that quite a key one is missing, or a couple of key ones are missing, and that is date and date time. So if you want to say, for example, let's just say you want to have like a checkbox appear on a custom object where it's based on a time interval, what you would need to do is create a formula to kind of count the days between whatever your 2 days are. So let's just say you were doing a tick box to say, okay, a review is due, and a review is due 6 months from, in that scenario where I use the client case custom object, a case review is due 6 months from the open date. What you would do is create a formula which would basically be today, take away open date, and then you'd then set that to be, the number field would be 6 months. So it'd be 6 times 28 is how I would do that for us. So I'm not exactly sure what that is mathematically, but you'd be doing 6 times 28, and you put your number field create your number field as a formula, and then you'd use that as your custom component visibility. So that's how you do stuff with time-based fields. Use a formula to create that, and then use the formula field to control your component visibility rule, because you can't actually do it with date or date times. As a slightly pro tip for those who are maybe, because it comes up in the next point, if you use Flow quite a bit or Process Builder, just think of it in the similar kind of ways to what you'd have to do workarounds with them, because if you're using the date to control things, you can't actually say greater than X days in Flow or Process Builder. You have to say, you have to put it as a date. So using formula fields can really help leverage that experience for your users. The fourth tip to mention is around using flows to enhance your user experience. So you saw there, I had a quick action, which was called close case. And underneath that was a screen flow, where I just had my closure fields. You can use them to really enhance the experience if your users have permission to use flow, and you can use that to kind of work through that section. So in that scenario, I had it so the closure fields would be read-only to the end users, and they would have to click the close case button in order to complete that information. So you could do different things. So that's the example on this slide of if you want to display a dynamic action on an opportunity that has a specific age, for example, you could use a scheduled triggered flow in order to check that out and make sure it's reaching that value. So you can see run a scheduled trigger flow once every day or once every week or however often you need to do it to check the age of your opportunity, and then you could use that, for example, to tick a custom checkbox on that in order to enact that visibility rule. The last tip on my list is one for the admins, which is make sure you can always access the actions. The reason I say this is because dynamic actions, whatever you set the component visibility to, unless you include the bit that I showed earlier on about for the delete, for example, where you had delete was only available to the system admin. What you wouldn't be able to do is you wouldn't be able to see that if that wasn't included. So for those ones where you're kind of working through them and saying, okay, like in the closed case, for example, only have this display when the case is open, you would want to include an extra visibility rule where you would set the filter condition to be all and then have the profile to be system admin. That's the tip that I would do. And again, the reason for that is because if there's any issues with, say, the kind of data integrity issue with that record, you can go back and correct that as the system admin. So make sure you always have those rules visible, those dynamic actions visible. And again, I know it's been a bit of a whistle-stop tour, but that is the stuff I have. And it'd be great to see if you have any questions. I'm happy to take questions from the audience. You should be able to request to share your audio or video, or to pop your questions in the chat. I'm going to stop sharing my screen now for now, and we'll see if we've got any questions coming in. Okay, so we have a question from Anish, which is, can we set this in field sets? I might need a bit more clarity on this, Anish, but from my, if I'm understanding you correctly when it comes to field sets, the answer to that would be no, because it's based on the Lightning record page and you put each field in individually. It's not something that you do with any kind of groups, but maybe if you were either able to give a bit more context, or I might be able to answer that question a little bit better, but I believe from what I understand your context is there, the answer would be no. Okay. Do we have any more questions coming in? We do have 25 minutes, including the time for the raffle, to kind of go through. So I'm more than happy to take any questions. I'm going to have a look at the poll as well. 3 said yes and 16 said no to using it. Okay, let's have a look. There's another question in here. So, is it possible to show or hide a section based on the value selected in a field before saving? So technically, yes. So that it is a bit tricky with pick lists, I'll be honest, Alamin. But yes, the point of dynamic forms is so you can do that. What I might do is, let me just quickly go back here. I'm going to share my screen again so you can see that. So let me just share the screen so you can see. And if I click on my edit button here, you will see here how this works. So let me, again, take this out. And I'm going to delete the date here. And I'm going to change the status to open. And what you'll see here is you see this little I button appears. And when I click on this, is the following fields were removed from the record closure date. So let me just show you that again. So if I click on closed here, you see the closure date appears. And if I click on open, the closure date disappears. And if I scroll down, the notes for some reason aren't disappearing, but once I click on save, the section will. So I see sometimes it's a bit buggy. But when I click on save, so it says here, some of the fields you updated were hidden due to changes made. We save changes only for visible fields, so the updates to the hidden fields will be discarded. Contact your sales admin for more. So we just click on continue, and you'll see there the section disappears. So you can do a bit of that. So I'm going to then go back to this. I'm going to have a look at this question from Sudeep. It says, can the field displayed be dynamic, i.e. based on the other field selection, but without saving the record? For e.g. on a country field, based on the selection of any value, then state field is displayed. So if you've got this in a custom object, the answer to that would be yes. So I can quickly put that into here. So let me just go here. So let me go on to here. So let me just use this as an example here. So I'm going to actually edit the page. So I'm going to change this up a little bit so you can actually see how this will work to answer your questions too deep. So let me just change the section visibility here. And then I'll show you how that, what you're saying there would work. So let's just say, for example, your country is a pick list and your state is also a pick list. We'll do it that way. So we'll work through this and I'll show you how this will work. So I'm going to edit my section here so you can see. Okay, so what I'm going to do here is I'm going to take off the visibility from my section so that this will just technically at the moment always appear, just because we saw that it was being a bit buggy. So let me do that. So let me do that. So I've got other reason for closure. And I'm going to actually haven't got the field in there for reason for closure. So let me add this in here. I should have had that before. So I'm going to add my filter here. I'm going to have case status equals closed. Done. And I'm going to add case status here also equals closed. I'm going to save that. And I'm then going to go back. So once this is saved, you'll see here that these fields will not be visible, but the section will be. And I'm just doing this for the point of this demo, Sudeep, so you can see here how this is working. And I'll give it a second to load. Okay, so going back to your example, and this should work in practice. As I say, sometimes it can be a bit bitty, but it should. So I'm going to click on my edit button here, and you're going to see here the case closure section is there, but the fields aren't. So what you saw there is I had it set so that once I set the case status to closed, in this example, the reason for closure field will display. So I'm going to click on closed here, and you'll see there that the date is there, And you'll see here, the reason for closure field is disengaged. And I'm going to click on, put that back in there. But what I'm going to do to show you that, how that also works, you saw before I had, when the reason was other, then the other text field would appear. So I'm going to click on other, and you'll see there, other appears. So you can still do, so you can do exactly what you're saying there, where you asked there, Sudeep. You can do that. So I'm just going to put a test on that. So that should answer that question there, Sudeep. I'm just going to have a look in the chat to see if there's any more questions coming through, because we are at 1 minute to the hour. And we've got quite a few things coming through there. So is there any more questions that anybody would like to ask? Again, feel free to request to share audio and video if you want to ask any questions as well. There's another one in the chat here. Susan saying, yes, that's exactly what you're looking for. Yes. So I'll say you can do that. But again, just bear in mind, custom Dyno Forms is only available right now on custom objects on mobile. It is imminent or hopefully imminent for standard objects. But again, what I'll do very quickly, I'm going to stop sharing my screen